God that we serve is a mighty God. I want to welcome us all to FSM Daily Digital Show. If it is Sunday, it is religion, nuns, politics. You know, we can't get away from politics. Spiritualism, self-control, dialogue. Again, if it is Sunday, it is religion, non-politics, secularism, and spiritualism, self-control, dialogue. And so we have a great show for you this evening. Our 200 guests here, Dr. Payne, we have Dr. Payne, and also we have Dr. Johnson, as we focus on the reality of this coronavirus and many different things. So thank you for joining us this evening. I ask you now just to bow your head with me as I seek divine help. Heavenly Father, in the name of Jesus Christ, we know you are a mighty God. So we need you now. If there's ever a time that we want for you to show your mighty hand, is now. As we look at this coronavirus and what it is doing to us as a nation, and all the many different things that are happening in our life and around us, clearly we need some help. But Lord God, we need above all self-control, because you have given us enough wisdom in respect to this COVID-19. So now we need to exercise wisdom. We need to exercise self-control in respect to how we wear our mask and do the necessary thing that keep us safe. Help us, oh God, because when we think to do good, then evil appear. So help us to do that which is good. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Love I've ever found comes like a flood, comes flowing down. At the cross, I surrender my life. I'm in awe of you. I'm in awe of you. Where your love ran red, and my sin washed white. Owe it all to you. I owe it all to you. At the cross, I surrender my life. I'm in awe of you. I'm in awe of you. Where your love ran red, and my sin washed white. Owe it all to you. Owe it all to you, Jesus. Here my hope is found, here on holy ground. Here I bow down, here I bow down. Here arms open wide, here you save my life. Here I bow down, here I bow down. Here my hope is found, here on holy ground. Here I bow down, here I bow down.
Thank you very much, Sister Anthony. We appreciate that. Thank you. We appreciate that beautiful selection. We're here to bow down before our Lord. Our topic is, if it is Sunday, it is religion, nuns are the fastest growing non-religious body here in these United States. Politics is all around us. Even in this nation, as we finish one presidential election, then we have senator runoff election, then we have mayor, we have governor, and all over the world. So we can't help but live with politics. Also, we have spiritualism. This world is full of spiritualism and demonic spirit. Then we have secularism. And so we have to live as children expression of God among all these different isms. And so how do we navigate in these difficult times? And so first, we're going to call upon first guest, Dr. Payne, and so hear what Dr. Payne has to share with us in respect to this COVID-19. Dr. Payne, please.
Yes. The global number for today is 66,995,894, and that went up by 614,850 yesterday. The global debt is at 1,536,921, and that went up by 9,531 yesterday. In the United States, the number now is at 14,985,142, and that went up by 206,041 yesterday. The deaths in the United States is 287,842, and that went up by 2,137 yesterday. In New York, the number now is at 734,600, and that went up by 10,163 yesterday. The deaths in New York is 34,886, and that went up by 54 yesterday. In Georgia, the number now is at 494,354, and that went up by 5,017 yesterday. The deaths in Georgia is at 9,725, and that went up by 68 yesterday. The standings in the US right now is, let me get my figures here. Okay, it's Texas, California, Florida, Illinois, New York, Georgia, Ohio, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Tennessee, North Carolina, Indiana, New Jersey, Arizona, Minnesota, and Arizona. That's the standings. I was going further than what I normally do. The increases for yesterday was led by California with 25,364 new cases. Pennsylvania, 11,374. Texas, 11,263. Ohio, 10,469. Florida, 10,431. New York, 10,163. Illinois, 9,887. Indiana, 7,690. Arizona, 6,799. Minnesota, 6,308. Michigan, 6,308. Okay, North Carolina, 6,018. Massachusetts, 5,619. Colorado, 5,125. Georgia, 5,017. The deaths for yesterday was led by Illinois again, 235. Texas, 205. Michigan, 203. Pennsylvania, 134. California, 89. Florida, 87. Indiana, 85. Wisconsin, 77. Minnesota, 75. Missouri, 70. Georgia, 68. Ohio, 64. New York, 54. North Carolina, 49. And Alabama, 46. Now, the standings in the world for today is still led by the United States, then India, Brazil, Russia, France, Spain, United Kingdom, Italy, Argentina, Colombia, Mexico, Germany, Poland, Iran, Peru, and Peru. Okay. Now we had 4 states yesterday with 0 cases. and 9 states with 0 death. We had 74 countries with 0 cases and 132 countries with 0 death. The figures for yesterday, we had 206,041 cases in the US, which broke down to be 8,585 per hour and 143 every minute. In the deaths for the United States, we had 2,137, which broke down to 89 every hour and 1 every minute. In the world, we had 614,850, which broke down to 25,619 per hour and 427 per minute. And in the deaths in the world is 9,531, and that broke down to 397 per hour and 7 per minute. Now I'm gonna give you some, I brought this up yesterday, and I don't think it was really understood what I was trying to say. The country with the largest population is China. China has 1.5 billion people, and China only had 86,619 cases. I don't know if that sinked in. China is number 76 on the countries of the world. The next country that has the maximum people, in fact, China's population is 4.34 times the United States population. And yet they only had 86,619. India is the next. It has 1.4 billion people. And theirs is closer to our confirmed cases. It's 9,651,727. The US only has 331,457,504 people, right? But yet the United States has 14,985,142 people infected. So this is not an issue about population. This is an issue about hygiene. Let me repeat that again. This is not an issue about how much people are in the world, because if that was the case, then both China, in fact, China would be leading because it has the most people. So it has nothing to do with population. It has to do with management of the virus. It has to do with hygiene. And what we don't understand is that America has the best hygiene in any country in the world. We have toilets. I was in a country once and they don't have any toilets. What they have is from stall to stall to stall, it's a trench, an open trench, and you deposit your feces and your urine in that trench. When I was there, I would not go to the bathroom in that country. I waited until I go back to the hotel because the hotels have toilets. I mean, even in the days when we had latrine, you had a toilet and you had a latrine, not an open trench. And these people have the virus under control. And we who have all this hygiene and this washing our hands and running water and all these other things cannot get it under control because we refuse to get it under control. It has nothing to do with population. It has to do with mismanagement of the virus. That's my presentation for this evening. You're muted again, Pastor.
Thank you very much, Dr. Payne. Indeed, I truly appreciate what you've shared with us before this so far. At this time, we're going to call upon our second guest, Dr. Johnson, and after Dr. Johnson present to us, then we're going to enter into a dialogue. And for the record, Dr. Johnson is a physician who works in the state of Illinois. So welcome again, Dr. Johnson.
Good evening, Pastor Barnaby. How are you?
I'm
and all
fine.
of the FSM listeners. We have been speaking on spiritualism, the doctrine of man's consciousness and death, especially the belief that the spirits of the dead return to minister to the living, has prepared the way for modern spiritualism. If the dead are admitted to the presence of God and holy angels and privileged with knowledge far exceeding what they before possessed, why should they not return to the earth to enlighten and instruct the living? If, as taught by a popular theologian, spirits of the dead are hovering about their friends on earth, why should they not be permitted to communicate with them, to warn them against the evil, or to comfort them in sorrows? How can those who believe in man's consciousness in death reject what comes to them as divine light communicated by glorified spirits? Here is a channel regarded as sacred, through which Satan works for the accomplishment of his purposes. The fallen angels who do his bidding appear as messengers from the spirit world, while professing to bring the living into communication with the dead. The prince of evil exercises his bewitching influence upon their minds. He has power to bring before men the appearance of their departed friends. The counterfeit is perfect. The familiar look, the words, the tone are reproduced with marvelous distinctness. Many are comforted with the assurance that their loved ones are enjoying the bliss of heaven without suspicion of danger. They give ear to seducing spirits and doctrines of devils. You see, the Bible says that we have all sinned and come short of the glory of God, and that the wages of sin is death. And in Ecclesiastes 9, verse 5 and 6, it tells us that the living know that they shall die, but the dead know not anything. There is no consciousness after death. There is no ability to communicate. The breath goes back to the one that gave it, and the body goes to the grave. But you see, who is talking to them? Martin Luther said it well in his in a song that he wrote in the 1500s, in 1529. You know Martin Luther. Martin Luther was that priest who reformed, and he led the Reformation, and he led the people back to knowing that Jesus Christ was their high priest. His blood was their sacrifice, and his altar was their confessional. And so Martin Luther read and studied the scripture, and this is the only place where you will get the truth, is by studying and reading the word of God. And I just want to read something from Martin Luther here. He says, "A mighty fortress is our God, a bulwark never failing. Our helper he amid the flood of mortal ills prevailing. For still our ancient foe doth seek to work us woe. His craft and power great, and armed with cruel hate on earth is not his equal. Did we in our own strength confide, our striving would be losing. Were not the right man on our side, the man of God's own choosing. Thus ask who that might be. Christ Jesus, it is he. Lord Sabbath, his name, from age to age the same, and he must win the battle." Verse 3, "And though the world with devils filled should threaten to undo us, we will not fear, for God hath willed his truth to triumph through us. The prince of darkness grim, we tremble not for him. His rage we can endure, for lo, his doom is sure, and one little word shall fail him. That word above all earthly powers, no thanks to him abideth. The Spirit and the gifts are ours through him who with us sideth. Let good and kindreds go. This mortal life also, the body they will kill. God's truth abideth still. His kingdom is forever. Jesus Christ, the first, the second, and the last. He is the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. In him alone, in God alone, there is immortality until he shares it with us when he shall come in the clouds of glory in 1 Thessalonians 4, verse 16, when he shall descend from heaven with a shout of the archangel and the trump of God, and the dead in Christ shall rise first. And we who remain until that time shall be caught up together with them to meet him in the air, and so shall we ever be with the Lord. And then the story picks up in Revelation, the 20th chapter.
Thank you very much, both Dr. Payne and Dr. Johnson. Now, we want to enter into a dialogue around these two schools of thought. Dr. Payne is a scientist. One of his, well, at least it's one of the area he have his PhD in. I have 3 PhD in 3 different areas, but we're going to focus now on where he's contributing to the show as a scientist. Also, we wanted to talk with Dr. Johnson, who is a physician. And our topic on Sunday, if it is Sunday, we discuss religion, nuns, politics, spiritualism, secularism, self-control dialogue. And so Dr. Johnson present from the spiritual perspective on spiritualism. And so what I want to talk about now is in the context of public health and spiritualism this day. And so as Dr. Payne shared with us, there's 2 very important points that Dr. Payne made to us that I want for us to re-emphasize here, if I may. So Dr. Payne, you mentioned in your presentation these point that in the nation of China, 1.5 billion people. Is that correct? And India has, is it 1.3 or 1.4 billion people?
It's 1.383.
So that's roughly to 1.4 billion. And you said in terms of those who are infected with the virus in China is under 100,000. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And
86,619.
So 86,000. So let's roughly say 100,000.
Right.
Now, let's go now to India. How many people that are infected with the virus in India?
Well, India has a lot more. India is 9,655,727. So India is much closer to the United States because India is next to the United States. It has 9 million, and the United States has 14 million.
So we here in the United States has 14 million, and India has 9 million. But however,
that's right.
But however, the population in India is 1.4 billion. So basically, India has around a billion people more than we do.
India has 4.17 times the population of the United States.
Yeah, so roughly over a billion people. So if we compare in terms of our infection rate, in terms of the virus, we are way off the chart in comparison to these nations.
That's correct. And we're getting worse every day.
You also mentioned from the perspective of hygiene. So you were talking from hygiene in respect to which of all the nations in the world that you believe are factual, that is more up to date in terms of hygiene.
Well, the country that is most up to date with hygiene is the United States of America. The next one is Canada. But the United States of America has has toilets, it has running water, it has everything that we need. Right?
So,
in other countries, the toilet, the sewer system, I don't know what to call it, but the way you go to a toilet in some of these other countries, not even the pit latrine that we are accustomed to in Jamaica and so on. It's a trench, and it goes from stall to stall to stall, and it's just a trench that you deposit both your feces and your urine in.
so
There's nothing to flush.
So the point that I'm trying to make here, Dr. Payne, speaking from a hygiene perspective, then if there's any nation then that should be leading in terms of less infection from this virus, then it should be us.
That's the point I'm trying to make.
So
That we are so far superior when it comes to hygiene to any country in the world. In fact, the report from the CDC says that 2.4 billion people in this world, 32% of the population, has terrible hygiene.
So what's your analysis? What's your analogy then? Are you finding why then we as a nation are having our rate of in respect to this infection are so high in comparison to China that first had the virus, and even in India that has at least 1 billion people than we do as a nation?
And not only that, but China is number 76 out of 222 countries. So China is way, way, way superior to us.
In terms of the virus?
Yes. Yeah, we're discussing the virus.
Yeah, let's, if I may ask Dr. Johnson now. Dr. Johnson, I know your topic that you focus on in spiritualism, but I like to combine it both also from medicine perspective in terms of from public health and also spiritualism as well. Given what Dr. Payne have just shared with us, Dr. Johnson, where China has less than, if it's correct, because some of those nations sometimes don't really report accurately. I think we have more. I think we have.
Pastor Barnaby.
Yeah.
Pastor Barnaby, that is a fraudulent statement.
All right, correct me, please.
Because it's the World Health Organization that tracks these things.
Okay, so Dr. Payne, you're saying then that this is not. Are you saying that nations sometimes don't suppress the number? Or are you saying this is?
Yes, we do in America.
Okay, all right. All right, well, I stand corrected there.
Number in America because we don't want people to know the facts.
All right, Dr. Payne have the authority here when it comes to this. As such, I stand corrected in what Dr. Payne just shared with us. So given what you just shared with us, Dr. Payne, come down to Dr. Johnson. Now, Dr. Johnson, given what Dr. Payne have just affirmed here, in terms of it appears as if from the record, what we have learned so far, we have less than 100,000 people that are infected with this virus in China. Now, sometime in one day in this nation, we have more than 100 people that's been affected with this virus. So my question to you now, you could answer this both from a public health perspective and also from spiritualism. What's your take as a physician, and when you look at these comparison between the other nations and our nation, which is the leading nation in respect to as more developed nation? What's your take on this, Dr. Johnson?
I think that it has to do with social contact. And the lack of adhering to the personal protective equipment requested, the wearing of the mask, washing of the hands, and distancing oneself from your neighbors, and the lack of that early on, the lack of taking it serious, allowed lots of cases to occur that may have been subclinical, and then it allowed those people to disperse themselves. And in America, you know, I think there, and I won't say that we have a greater mobility to move about in our landmass than some of those people in China, because they're living in small areas and they don't travel, I don't think, long distances that some Americans travel. And I'm just guessing that we might be able to move about from one state. This is before the coronavirus, of course, very easily from one state to the other, hundreds of miles, you know, with vehicles and cars and planes. And in many parts of China, they use bicycles, so they're not going that far from there. They don't live that far from there where they work at, where they go to school at. There's not a great about a distancing. And then when it comes to recreation, I don't think that on a regular basis, on the weekend, they'll jump on a plane and fly to Vegas and then fly up to New York and then down to Georgia or Atlanta as easily as we do. And we move about the East Coast and the Midwest quite frequently, easily. And however, in California, the land distance is mass is greater. The land area, topographically, I think that's the reason why it got to California later, and that's why a lot of the doctors in California were saying that the number of bodies that were being generated in New York and that the freezer trucks were taken away was being extrapolated, blown up, and all of it was a lot of hype. And the doctors there were shutting down in agreement with the order given to the entire country, but they were losing their practice because the people were not coming and they were not seeing the daily numbers that they were used to seeing. So they started this talk about the fact that it wasn't really any more than just a flu or a regular adenovirus, and that it was being blown out of proportion, that many deaths due to heart failure, heart attack, stroke, diabetes, lung cancer, other diseases were being attributed to coronavirus, and that they believe the numbers were being blown up. That was sometime like in June. Later on, when it hit California and it started to blow up because of the lack of taking the news serious, there was this idea that was put out by the government initially, that not the government as a whole, but certain influential parties in government did not take it seriously, because in February they were saying things like, this is a hoax. And that stuck with some people, and they just went on. They refused to wear the mask. Now in China, like I said, they don't move around. They couldn't get around it, even though in their land mass there were 1.6 billion people in China. There are 1.2 billion people in India. But in India, it's even more rural than in China, and in southern India. And you'd have to look at the big cities to see and look and follow and see if the people might have been following the rules for safety in the face of this pandemic. And so I think that probably has it. As far as the sanitation, I was just listening to talk about the sanitation, and in some of the rural countries, and like in South America, these open latrines that he's talking about are nothing more than the same sewer system that we have, but we have it covered. Now, if you were to uncover our sewer system, it would look very much like the trenches that run in front of the houses in these small places. Like I've been in some small places in South America, in Guyana, and then the rural places in Brazil. But you have the trenches that run in front of the houses, and the sewer comes out of the house and is washed out, of course, by water. So water determines the degree of sanitation and the presence or the lack of the presence of stench in these rural cities. And the more water you have, and especially in the rainy seasons, You can't even smell the sewer, and the trench is right there in front of you. Step over it to go through the front yard, to go in the front door of the houses. And so it can be a problem in countries where there's not good water, and the water flow is slow. In the seasons that are not rainy and hot and sticky, and there are bugs that go into them and multiply and propagate. So I think, yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's not just a matter of the smell. It's a matter of distributing bacteria.
Mm-hmm.
You see, the smell doesn't matter. I mean, yes, it's unpleasant, but the smell don't make you sick.
Yeah, but you know, if the rainy season comes and washes the stuff, and I understand what you're saying, that the
Right.
sanitation covering our sewer keeps aerosols from washing up with bacteria up into the atmosphere, into your face as you walk along the road, or being stirred up by a car coming down the road. And I agree with you. I agree with you that it can wash up an aerosol, and even in the rainy season, you probably get more aerosol because the trenches are higher with water as the trench is running through, washing the raw sewage down the trenches for miles and then out of the city into whatever sewer system they got going. I'm not an expert in the sewer system, but when they were fixing a house in the city one time, pulling a tree out, the tree roots got into the sewer system, and I got to see the old sewer system. It runs right down our streets. I think most of our sewers run straight down the middle of our streets in the cities, and was covered up by the street like a brick covering, like a brick ceiling or roof over the city. We have a roof over our sewers, and so when it was opened up, it was lined with brick. And I can see that was put in there a long time ago. And so that pipes bring it out of our house, and the water keeps it flowing in one direction. We have air traps that keep the stuff from flowing backwards. But I walked down the street in Chicago not more than about 3 weeks ago, and I could smell the raw sewer. To me, if you can smell the gases, methane, aerosols can be washed up through whatever way that gas is coming up, and you can smell it. Then aerosol is also probably present in bacteria as well. But I'm not sure how much bacterial disease is transmitted by that. But I am aware that coronavirus is supposedly transmitted in sometimes in the toilet, where the aerosol can wash it up. If somebody has had a bowel movement, the coronavirus is passed out in the stool. And so they tell you, don't go into a toilet and then take your mask down as you're flushing the toilet, because you may get the aerosol backwashed up out of the toilet stool. And in our modern sewer plumbing system, we can actually still be exposed to it. So I would guess that you could even be more exposed to the coronavirus if it was sitting there present as raw sewage.
But Dr. Johnson,
yes.
I'm not concerned about the point I'm trying to make is that if people are more susceptible to diseases, is where the hygiene is not good.
Mm-hmm.
Because you have weakened immune system, and so when something hits you, it hits you hard.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Well,
people in America have fairly good health compared to other people in the world.
mm-hmm.
And so it has to be that we didn't take it serious, we didn't put on the mask, we didn't wash our hands properly. It has to do with hygiene.
Yes.
That's the point I'm
now,
trying to make.
Are you saying, do you look at the fact that there are more deaths, or that there are more cases? So are you talking about the transmission?
Well, I was dealing with cases, but there is more death in the United States than in China too.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, deaths, when I look at the number of deaths due to coronavirus, I think about the genetics, because everybody doesn't respond to it in the same way. there is a genetic
Thank you.
response where
That's the
there's a
point.
downregulation of the AT2 receptors, and the AT1 receptors are left, which cause vasoconstriction, blood clot formation, whether it's in the brain or the lung or someplace else in the body, and fibrosis. So this is what causes a storm. First they thought a cytokine storm. Now they say bradykine, but it is a general inflammatory state that's brought up in the body. But genetically, their response to it seemed to be worse in certain cases. And then suddenly you get people who are younger responding. Well, maybe genetics is playing a part in what happens after the virus is contracted. Yes, certainly the state of the person, the health is important. That's why we suggest that prophylactically you be on vitamin D, C, and zinc, and quercetin, and probiotics, as well as melatonin to get enough rest. And if your stomach is upset and you're not getting, because of this whole thing, Pepsid would be good to prophylax with. And then if a person is, so if a person in India gets it, and then additionally, because of studies that are done there, they will give them ivermectin. Now, he hasn't gotten real sick yet, but he's coronavirus positive. So now we're talking about the outcome. The outcome is changed by them using ivermectin 6 milligrams twice a day for 5 days, and azithromycin 500 milligrams a day for 5 days in cases that have become positive, who they feel might be at risk of developing the disease or having a bad outcome. Now that could change the mortality rate, the number of cases, number of people that die. But on the other hand, I think I have to agree with you, the number of cases, period, would have to do with the transmission. How contagious, how viral this thing is, and the viral loads that are available to spray on one another, for us to spray on, how much virus is in what we're breathing in. Are we doing the right things, washing the hand, mask on, and standing back, keeping a social distance? Are we staying at home? Are we just traveling out and still mingling?
Dr. Johnson, if I may, if I may please, just in respect to the number, here in the United States, as Dr. Payne have shared, we have over 14 million people that are now infected with this virus. We understand that this virus originated in China, but yet China has under 100,000 infected cases as based on the math. So, and sometimes we get over 100,000 people get infected in this country in one day alone. And so my question now, what can you point to maybe generally maybe one or two specific things that you believe that why discrepancy is so different here between both countries?
And Pastor Barnaby.
Yes, Dr. Payne.
Another thing in these, especially in China, I'm dealing with China now, especially in China, Chinese eat a lot of animals that we shouldn't be eating, right? In fact, that's why they thought it started in one of these facilities that deals with these animals. So I honestly believe that Americans are healthier than Chinese because of the hygiene and the things that we do here normally. It has been discounted, and we don't wear masks, and we refuse to wear masks, and we refuse to, I don't know if they wash their hands or what, but the point is that we refuse the hygiene. It has been demonized about wearing masks and all these other things. These countries, they're doing something better than we are. That's my point.
And what do you perceive, Dr. Payne, that they're doing better than we're doing?
I don't think they're healthier. I think they're doing something better by managing the virus.
Okay.
I don't think that they're healthier.
Good evening.
Canada.
If I may,
Could you just a moment, please? Let me just have Dr. Johnson to answer the question, and then I will.
I would like our guest to go ahead with her question. I have something, but it can wait.
Oh, okay. All right, then. Go ahead, please.
Okay.
did I hear you correctly asking what it is that we Americans are doing as opposed to the other countries not doing or is doing?
Yes, that was what I was trying to get. Are there, in their mind, as professional in their area of expertise, do they perceive there's something that that nation, for example, let's use China, for example, we understand that this virus originated in China. And so we want, but yet China is now reported that it has less than 100,000 people that are now infected with this virus as we speak. But yet in this nation, last week or so, we had a high of almost 150,000 people in one day that caught the virus. So I want to know, as a citizen of this nation, what are we doing different from what they're doing in China?
And in the last 5 days, we have had over 1 million infections in 5 days.
Okay, thank you. So
My answer is it's a cultural thing. In China, they are exceptionally disciplined. If they are told to wear their mask, they will wear their mask.
Thank you.
If they are told to wash their hand and social distance, they will do it. They're not going to defy that. That's one. Number two, they are sanitary. They're not uncleanly. If they're going to eat, they always have these little things to wash and clean their fingers. Yes, they may be eating things that they shouldn't be eating, but when it comes on to discipline, following rules, obeying the law, or whatever statutes are put down for them to follow, they will do it.
There has been seen in other countries other than America where there's a wave. No one's used to this thing with coronavirus, where you have waves. So like a flu, you have a wave every year. But if you're going to have a wave every 4 months, then the people tend to lose their guard. Now, I'm not talking about the undisciplined ones. You are right. There was a bunch of them that were running to the beach. They were having coronavirus parties. And that's when the young people started finding out that they are susceptible to the virus. And we found out that it not only causes pulmonary problems, but it causes strokes in the young people because these coronavirus receptors are throughout the body in different tissue beds and different organs. And certainly their lack of discipline caused a host where the virus could thrive, and then as they travel off to school in different states, be carried to different places. But there were some of us who took it very seriously from the beginning. We had on masks, we stayed at home, we did all the things that we were supposed to do. And some of them got tired. And before you know it, the mask didn't go quite up over the nose. The hands were not washed. They didn't wash the packaging on the food as it was coming in the house anymore. There were a whole lot of things that people were doing when they first heard about this virus. They were afraid. And as that fear sort of wears off, some of the single people like to go out to bars and parties and congregate and socialize. For them, it's like being in prison. In Italy, they had a real big problem. The policemen had to arrest people on the street. Yeah, I know what you're saying, and what you're saying is true. And there is a segment of the population that is undisciplined, and that's generation after generation. The young adult and the middle-aged adult, these were the ones who were in that period when theoretically, classically, American culture is that they go out and they have fun, and they, in their minds, they do what they want to do during that period in life. But you have the older middle age and the seniors, and you have other people who are take this thing very seriously, but they cannot outweigh the number of people that didn't take it seriously. And it's not just here in America. There's a wave phenomenon where people get exhausted, cabin fever. They get sick of being inside, and as the wave has reached its peak and it's starting to go down, and they tell the people the number of cases have fallen, the number of cases has leveled off. Then you get people emerging, running back out to meet together and to get together in groups, to get together at their houses, to get together at parties, social events, school gatherings. We want to have our graduation. We want this funeral to go off, and so we want everybody to come. We haven't seen Grandpa, and now he's dead, so everybody from 6 different states is going to come, but we're going to be 10 feet apart, and so this kind of thing takes place. And sadly enough, there is a lot of truth in what you're saying, but also there's some other factors that play into this thing, where some people are single people in their homes by themselves. They don't go anywhere. They don't go out any place. There's some stuff that's going on with them. They stay awake a longer period of time during work at home than they would ever do in the office. And their sleep is disturbed. Now their diet is disturbed. Their rest is destroyed. And the amount of water, whatever exercise is blocked because of the fear of going to the gym and coming in contact with coronavirus. So we must have a solution for this. And that's why they believe that if they could immunize 60% of the population, they could bring the herd immunity in place, and that would slow down and stop the propagation of the spread of the coronavirus. They could get that. Right now, they got about 30% of the population is saying, we don't want to take a vaccine. No matter what it is, we don't want to take it. Well, a lot of reasons why they don't want to do it. I mean, I can remember the swine flu vaccine. After they got the vaccine, and people had Guillain-Barré syndrome, and some of them did, not all of them. There was a Salk virus long ago, probably long before we could ever imagine, when one company gave the people live virus, and the children developed polio. When Sabin came out, though, he gave an attenuated virus on a sugar cube. People took it, and they were better, and it didn't stop the people from jumping in line and say, let's go get this vaccine and get this over with. So the presidents, a couple of the presidents were going to be the first one to jump in line to show the citizens. I think Clinton and a bunch of other presidents, maybe Obama, I don't know, going to stand in line and get that vaccine to show people that this is a nice thing for you to do, and it's going to help bring all this thing over to a conclusion and bring it to a halt. If we can get a certain number of people immunized with a vaccine that promises better than 90% resistance to or immunity to the coronavirus.
Dr. Johnson, if I may, I want to ask one question, and then I also want to permit the audience to come in and ask questions as well, because I'm sure someone from the audience may have questions.
Pastor Barnaby.
Hold on a second, Dr. Payne, just a moment, please. And so here's my question for you, Dr. Johnson. Because our topic is religion, politics, spiritualism, secularism, self-control dialogue, and you're presenting both as a physician, you're also talking about spiritualism as well. And as we mentioned, we take note of the numbers, as Dr. Payne has just shared with us. We have less than 100,000 people in China. Again, we have 14 million people in the United States that caught the virus. And so now, here's my question now, that both public health and from a spiritualism perspective. Now, how much of this now, in terms of disinformation that sometime our leaders share with us that cause people to have mistrust, not wearing their mask. Now, how much of this have to do with spiritualism in terms of misinformation that even so deadly that it cause some people to even lose their very lives?
Well, that's a good question. I don't think it's just all on spiritualism, belief of which is a belief of the ability of dead people that have a conscious spirit that wants to communicate, and he has a desire and has an ability to communicate with us. I have not heard of any of them telling the people how they could get a cure from coronavirus, but there has been reports of radical coronavirus healing testimonies from certain religious organizations. So I would say, here you enter and say, well, do people do things because of religious cultures and beliefs? And I think that some of them believe that there was an ulterior motive for the things that were being done, especially when it resulted in closing of the churches along with all other public facilities. They felt that it was specialized against them, against their church, against their spirituality, against their relationship with God. And so here you have people that may have been in leadership positions that had the same kind of belief for a while, which were not really rooted and grounded or have a belief or a trust in science, you see. And there is a reason to have some distrust in science. I mean, the scientific method is built on doubt. That's why you have a deductive and inductive and reasoning and experiment set up, and then a conclusion, and then you have a theory, and maybe that can come into a law, and if it becomes a law, it becomes a fact, it becomes reproducible. And so the people doubt science nowadays, and they're taught, I think it's cultural to doubt the science and to second guess and question the doctors who are human. If you go on the internet, you can find answers to questions that maybe the doctor may not be able to answer for you. And maybe there is a scientist there that has better understanding than, your primary doctor. And that's the reason people used to travel to places like Mayo Clinic and Johns Hopkins University to get to the better centers of learning and enlightenment and of education, so to speak. So, yeah, spiritualism can have an effect when people believe that the true healing comes in the form of their spiritual relationship with God, and that is superior to medicine. And when you talk about miracles, miracles are when something occurs, a totally immediate, instantaneous reversal, regeneration of tissue and of a defect, of an insult, injury, or a disease process is totally eradicated within seconds. And you're talking about miracles, okay? And so did this have any play? There were religious organizations at the forefront in putting our last leader into position. The evangelicals, I believe, really had a lot to do with Trump getting voted in. And so they had agendas, they had ideas and concepts which they kept in private before him, and to remind him of his political promises before they put him into place. And so, I don't have anything specific to give you, but I know that the events that I think everybody is aware of How
Okay.
he went into the meeting with those evangelicals, and when he came out, they said he's a born-again Christian, and boom, they threw in behind him so that they could get their agenda and develop some
I-
political
Pastor Barnaby.
power.
I appreciate that, Dr. Johnson. No, Dr. Payne has a question or a statement, and then if there's anyone in the audience that want to pose a question, please, or a statement, please feel free to do so as soon as Dr. Payne finishes thought.
Yes, I just wanted to add, in fact, I wanted to add it about 5 minutes ago when it came up. This vaccine that is supposed to be a panacea, is supposed to be so good and so on, is not going to be available for probably 9 months, because they have to go through the medical profession. People are talking about the teachers. They have to go through. It's not going to be available to the average American public for about 9 months. So you have to keep that in mind also. So that's not really a panacea for the virus, because the virus is in the public, and the public is not going to get the vaccine until all the medical workers get it, and all the other people who are in line, the elderly and all those other things, before they're going to get it. So, you know, I don't want to sow false hope.
Appreciate that, Dr. Payne. Thank you very much. Is there any question from the audience? Remember, Dr. Payne is a scientist. Dr. Johnson is a physician. And we're talking about politics, religion, secularism, spiritualism, and of course, it does encapsulate the virus as well. Dr. Payne can speak from a scientific perspective. Dr. Johnson can speak from a medical perspective. So, do you have a question? Do you have a comment?
Dr. Johnson, I have a question. The virus is thought to be airborne. That's how it's called. And I, over the months, I've heard that if you look in the sewer system, it's filled with the virus. Now, from a medical perspective, if it's in the sewer, it means it's going through the different organs to get into the sewer. Now, can it be caught through eating something? Can you catch it? I mean, because they're calling it airborne, but can you get the virus? Can you be infected through things that you eat?
That's a very good question, because while they were telling people to put the mask on and do this kind of stuff, they were not closing McDonald's and Burger King and other pizza places and things like that. The thought was that it was most devastating when it wound up in the lung. It came through the nose and injected itself into the cells in the mucosa, and there began to replicate, and that after 3 days the aerosol would drop down into the lung, and there it would do its most devastating work in those people who were susceptible to winding up with ARDS, adult respiratory distress syndrome, after developing a coronavirus pulmonary infection. But when it went to the, I'm sorry,
but they also mentioned about touching your eyes. You know, that was one of the things that they said long ago, that you have to be careful. In fact, from washing your hands, you know, you shouldn't be touching your eyes and so on. So it was not just inhalation.
Right. And as I pointed out, there are receptors for coronavirus throughout the body, from the tip of the nose all the way down to the base of the lung, from the tip of the nose and your teeth all the way down through your intestine and your stomach, your colon and everything. That's how it's getting into the sewer. It's coming through your GI tract. But in the GI tract, the illnesses that occur, and there are some GI distresses that occur as a result. You don't get the damaging vasoconstriction, blood clotting, and fibrosing in that organ system because it doesn't have the same type of parenchymal structures that are found in the lung. If the vasculature in the brain is attached and the person has a response that we talked about with the downregulation of the AT2 receptor and the persistence of AT1, then you get vasoconstriction in the brain. And that's why some of those young people after those corona parties that they were having, those mocking coronavirus parties early on in the year, some of them had strokes. Unexplainably, they had a stroke. So, but yeah, you're right. It's not only the eyes, also the nose, you know. You say, well, you don't wash your hands and you touch your nose, a mucosa. Wherever there was a mucosa, you touch the mucosa of your nose. You put it in your eye. Then the eye has an opening, the lacrimal duct between the eye and inside of the nose, which eventually could present it to the respiratory tract. So it was the respiratory tract that was most dramatically devastating to watch its effects there, because there it caused a desaturation, the inability, the person would suffocate really, and the mucus. They said, well, the mucus gets really thick in the airway, and it's hard to move it out. So we want our people present yourself in case you're not oxygenating well, so you can be intubated, put on a mechanical ventilator. But then once they got you on the ventilator, if you develop this vasoconstriction, blood clotting, and fibrosing, they couldn't even oxygenate you. So there you died, and that was horrible for them because they had no way of stopping this process in susceptible people. And the key is susceptible people. How many people are susceptible to that fashion of the presentation? Then it's not just aerosol that we're talking about. We knew that if it landed on plastic or metal, it lasted for so much. And if it lasted on cardboard, if it landed there, it could be there for 24 hours. And you could touch the theoretically touch the cardboard or the plastic or the steel, stainless steel, and introduce it to your nose or your eye and develop an infection. Theoretically, that's what the idea was, that this thing is so dangerous, so contagious, much more contagious than the flu, and the mortality rate was much higher in those susceptible individuals.
Thank you.
So that answers your question that, yeah, it's more than just aerosol transmission. It is transmitted by fomites. Those are inanimate objects that can be touched. If you touch them right away, doorknobs, toilet things, and stuff like that, then you could be, you could introduce it to yourself off your head. Yes, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
We also don't understand the long-term effects. We haven't had the virus long enough to understand what's going to happen a year from now. So all that has to be taken into account.
Yes, that's true. That's true.
Is there?
I don't know. I don't know about people in other countries. You know how many people are having terrible sequelae after infections with the coronavirus in China or in India, and I look at those two populations because they are so highly populated and densely populated until they have to be. You have to look at them in China and to look at them to see how fast it can move in an area according to the density of the area. And I think that's something that I hadn't heard many people talk about, that to say that let's look at this part of the country in California, let's look at this New York, but they would say, well, how fast is it moving in a place where we're not densely populated? In a place that's really densely populated, you would expect it to explode and for the pandemic to rage and rip through that city or that town where the people are living in very close proximity one to another. And I have to agree with our earlier statements that in China, the people, they really practice this stuff real well about the personal protective equipment. But Canada was modeled. When it hit Canada, we use that as a model of what could be for all of us if we were to do what the people in Sweden did and what the people in Canada did, what the people in Sweden did, and how these people, they have a modern society, yet it did not rage and rip through them. They put on perfect defense against it socially with their mask and everything so that they contained it, and they had such low numbers and low mortality rate. I believe it was Sweden, but I also heard good things about Canada too. Dr. Payne, can you tell me, was Sweden better, their outcome better than Canada? I know both of their outcomes, I think, were better than the United States. What do you say?
Yeah, let me pull that up in. Let me
Sweden,
get that information.
Yeah. Okay, Sweden and Canada,
What,
I think.
while Dr. Payne pull up those information, is there anyone that has a question for Dr. Johnson or a statement that you'd like to make? While Dr. Dr. Payne work on pulling up those data.
Yeah, if we could have done the things that we look at them now and we say, wow, they're doing the right things. They're closing down. They're not attending these places where there are lots of people. They're doing things, taking precautions, every precaution, and they were able to contain, slow it down. I don't know. I don't want to say they reversed it, but I know that they slowed down the transmission.
Dr. Johnson, one of the questions I would like for you to maybe spend some time on, if possible. What are some of the things can we do now to optimize our body? For example, those who may have not caught the virus, number one, and secondly, those who are maybe caught the virus and survive it. And now, what are some of the things that even those that maybe still going through the symptoms of the virus? I know you cannot give any specific advice because someone is not in your care as a patient. So I'm aware of that you cannot speak specifically to an individual, but in a general sense, we will not, again, those that have not catch the virus, those who already got it and surviving it, and maybe those that even have mild symptoms of the virus. When you're finished with Dr. Payne, if you could spend some time.
Okay, so you asked me, what can we do individually for our health?
Yes, optimize
and,
our
number one, fighting coronavirus, number one is water. Stay hydrated from day to day. Stay hydrated day and night. These temperature drops that we're going through now in the United States as we go into the winter, we know that cold air is dry air, as I've said before, and then we're going to get dehydrated. We're already dehydrated. Most of us only drink about 50% of what we need, 70% at the best, on our best days, of all the water that we need to stay hydrated. So stay hydrated in advance. Try to get at least half of your body weight in ounces in water every day. A 150-pound man would be like about 70 kilos, about 70 ounces of water. If he was 160 pounds, he would say, let's say he would be approximately 80 pounds or 80 ounces of water is what he needed. A glass of water being 8 ounces, 8 into that would be about 10 glasses of water a day. So that's hard for the average person to drink. Just, if you exercise a lot, you develop a thirst and you'll go for it. I say cut up slices of lemon, and that really makes the water refreshing. Keep a picture of it around so that you can pour off of it, and then that would increase the amount of water that you drink. Try not to eat and drink together because that causes your stomach to stay full for a longer period of time, exposed to a weak acid, and then you don't feel like drinking in between. So try to eat your food 1 hour after you finish your last drink of water or liquid or whatever you're going to drink. Then you can start drinking again, maybe 2 or 3 hours after you finish your meal. Get another 2 glasses of water in, At room temperature, you can drink more water than you can if it's cold, ice cold. Ice cold sometimes drops the thirst signal down to about 50% of what it should be. So drinking the water is a way, using water, and I can talk about that at some other time, also a good way to fight coronavirus and to keep your mucosa moist so that the circulating blood can bring all of your immune defenses into the present affected tissue bed in the nose and the throat or in the lungs or in the eyes, keeping everything well hydrated. So that's number one. And then making sure you got plenty of vitamin C in there, because vitamin C repairs basement membrane and tissue membranes that have been disrupted by insulting agents, foreign agents such as this virus. And people, Afro-Americans, seem to do worse. And in the mortality and the postmortems, they find that a lot of those victims were vitamin D deficient. I don't think they know exactly what the connection between it is, but hey, if there's an epidemic, a silent epidemic that's been going on for a long time in Afro-Americans of vitamin D deficiency, because sunlight upon our skin is one of the vital steps in making vitamin D. And we have an umbrella to block that sunlight, which is our melanin. The coloring in our skin helps to block the sunlight from getting to the subcutaneous tissues and where the vitamin D cholesterol backbone structures are to make active vitamin D. So we sometimes we may need a supplement, a vitamin D supplement. And I would say make that a part of your regimen while we're in this coronavirus pandemic. Maybe vitamin D, 2,000 international units per day, okay? And if you don't take anything you don't need, so have your doctor check your vitamin D level to see if you're deficient. If you're less than 20, you could be deficient. Between 10 and 12 and 20 is insufficiency, okay? And you could get away with 2,000 international units of vitamin D every day. The vitamin D2 needs another step in the body to convert it to D3. So if you have a certain organ system failure needed to make that final step, then you probably have to take vitamin D3, calcitriol. So now your kidneys are gone. Let's say that you have a vitamin D level that's less than 10 or 12. That's vitamin D deficiency. And now your doctor can give you a little clear green caplet of vitamin D. They don't always have to be in that form, but that's the most common one. Like a little jelly, clear green, emerald green caplet that has vitamin D in it. 50,000 international units, big dose. Don't take that. You'll find 4 of those pills for the month in the bottle. You take one every week for 4 weeks, and that will help you get through your vitamin D deficiency. You can be checked again in a month or so, and don't continue to take the high doses and without being checked from month to month to month, because excess vitamin D can pull calcium up out of your bones. You don't want that. So make sure the doctor checks you from month to month and see that your vitamin D deficiency is resolving in the face of the therapy. And once you get to good range, then you may be able to maintain yourself on a lower dose of vitamin D, such as 1,000 or 2,000 international units once a day or every other day while you're in this epidemic. So that's vitamin D. The vitamin C, I like to say 500 milligrams twice a day. That's 1,000 milligrams of vitamin C. Try to get it from fruits and stuff like that. It's natural, because in a orange, it's hooked up with cofactors that we cannot match in the laboratory. So if you can get 250 milligrams of vitamin C in an orange, that's more than 2,000 or equivalent to 2,000 units of vitamin D in a pill form. Okay, so let's try to get our vitamin C naturally. Okay, so 2,000 milligrams of vitamin C every day is going to deplete your vitamin B12. If your vitamin B12 is depleted, your red blood cells won't divide in half like they should. They'll be extra big, undivided, pregnant, ready to give birth in mitosis, but they won't be able to because you have not the vitamin B12 around that you should have. So super big doses of vitamin C for a long time can deplete your B12. And by the way, I think super big doses, if you give that much vitamin D, 50,000 units on and on, you better look and see if you can replace some vitamin K also. So let's go forward. Now, vitamin D, vitamin C, and zinc. Where can you get zinc? Brazil nuts. You can get zinc from Brazil nuts and other minerals from those things. So let's look at getting some zinc in the body. Afro-Americans, again, they have found an association between zinc deficiency in men, Afro-American men, and prostate cancer. So we get the zinc in there. It helps to slow down the virility, I guess, the penetration and replication of the virus. Because some of the stages of blocking the virus, of preventing it from infiltrating and passing through the cell wall through endocytosis. And so then sometimes it gets in there, and then I think the hydroxychloroquine prevented the endocytotic vacuole of the person's cell membrane around the virus from opening up and releasing the virus inside their cell. That was what Plaquenil did, hydroxyquinoline. But ivermectin, the deworming agent, actually prevents the transmission of importation of a protein inside of the cell that causes it to be disarming the cell, so it cannot protect itself against the invading coronavirus. So ivermectin prevents that signal from going in. So you'll see that people who take ivermectin and prophylactically or during some early course of the illness will have less of a viral load. So you slow down the movement of the virus getting inside the cell, or its ability to get in and then replicate, and then so you decrease the viral load with the ivermectin. Ivermectin has side effects. Check with your doctor. You always have to make sure that it's right for you, because most of the time it's just itching and dizziness, but there are rare occasions where you can get edema and swelling and a host of other bad side effects from taking ivermectin. It's FDA approved for getting rid of worms, not fighting coronavirus, okay? So that's that message I'm going to get out there. So you have to check with your doctor. He may not want to use it as off-label. It's up to him, and generally they will try things that are off-label when you're fighting for somebody's life. Okay, so then I talked about quercetin. Quercetin is like a flavonoid that comes from fruits and vegetables. You can get the caplet. Let me show you a bottle of it, just real quick. I'm going to grab it out of my pocket. Okay, I'm here. Okay, here we are. So this one, quercetin. Let me show it to you. Can you see the quercetin? 500 milligrams. Look, maybe backwards, huh? Can you see it right?
Yeah, we
It's
can.
written back.
Yes, it's correct.
Okay, quercetin, 500 milligrams. I take one of those a day. It's a strong antioxidant. Okay, and then, of course, our rest is really important to us. And so to make sure I get rest, because I'm an old guy, then I use some melatonin, a little melatonin. All these are over the counter, okay? And so how did I get my zinc? I skipped over the zinc, because a doctor can write a prescription for Zincate for you, 220 milligrams. But you can get zinc at the drugstore. I got some lozenges that have zinc in them. Like I said, naturally you can get them from, but you can easily get some zinc, pick it up. Most of the stores, there's a big run on it because people already know that they need this to help prophylax them. So far I've mentioned 5 things. Probiotics. I don't have a special place where you should go run and get your probiotics, but try to learn something about probiotics and get them. They help to put and colonize your colon with the right type of bacteria to help move things through you pretty fast. And the quicker you get the stuff through you, the better. The transit time. So how can you improve your transit time? With fresh fruits and fresh vegetables. Fresh fruits off the market or vegetables are fresh frozen. fruits and vegetables, beans and grains, nuts and seeds. So these things will give you a high fiber diet, a low saturated fatty acid diet, and they will improve your antioxidation and help to get rid of and break up the enterohepatic circulation, where toxins are spewed out from your gallbladder and from your liver through your common bile duct into your intestinal tract. And then oatmeal and high fiber stuff comes along like an intestinal broom and sweeps all of that stuff out. And surely I like to get fiber from vegetables where it's nice and green and leafy, and so the fiber is still wet and from the plant. And if you can grow it on the farm and eat it straight from the vegetable, from the plants, this is the best way to get your nice fiber and get the bean when it's green, and get these things and cook them. It's just enough to make them able to be digested or broken down with the teeth. And broccoli is one of the good ones. It has such a strong antioxidant. They call it alpha lipoic acid. Alpha lipoic acid is just like this Arnold Schwarzenegger of anti-inflammatory. It goes through the fat membrane and right through the water and right through like a submarine, picking up all of those free radicals and destroying them and neutralizing them. So alpha lipoic acid is very important. It's one of the important steps in our metabolism. Sugar taking it's like the seat on a Ferris wheel, and it's stuck on the end of a long Ferris wheel spoke called a dihydrolipoyl transferase. It takes it from the cytosol and dips it down through the tricyclic acid cycle and through the membrane of the mitochondria down into the mitochondria where it goes through the tricyclic acid cycle. So here we got to understand that all of this stuff is from food. And once we could learn food, if we were to take a perfect book, would be a book that took all of our food and show you exactly where it falls into place in our body and how it's needed. Then we would become able to help defend ourselves against things like this virus. And exercising. Now, I don't say people should exercise when they're sick. Do you feel like exercising when you got the flu, when you got a fever? No, you don't. So try to rest up before then. 2 hours of sleep before midnight is worth more than 4 hours after midnight. Plenty of nutrition, water, sunshine. Sunshine heals the body. Be in a room, open the room, let sunlight get in there, kill and do its job, okay? It has lots of UVA, UVC. Do you know what I do when I come home? When I come home with my mask, I put it in a UVC box. This is it. I put it inside this box, my mask, okay? And then a blue light comes on, okay? And it says, welcome to the disinfectional unit, okay? The multi-function sterilizing with the UVC light. And then it kills and destroys any virus that may have landed on the outside of my mask. And then I may put the other things in too. Maybe my key, maybe my cell phone goes in there. It kind of destroy the stuff that I may have gotten by touching my cell phone with that too. So washing the hands and then don't walk around and sit in your house in the clothes that you've been out in the office with or at work someplace, and then the virus may have been, because I told you they live on things from 12, 16, and then on cardboard for 24 hours. You know, hey, it could live, and you could rub yourself on your favorite chair, rub your hand on that, you know, and you can actually auto-infect yourself. So nutrition, exercise, water, sunshine, temperance, not too much overeating. It is a fact. I mean, I'm looking at people staying at home. They don't have anything to do. They are so bored. What do? They hit that refrigerator 1, 2, 3 times. I say eat your meals every 5 hours apart. If you're going to do 3 meals a day. You're going to do 2 meals, do it 6 hours apart. You do not need a lot of food. You need to eat for strength, not for taste and snacks and for entertainment. Food should not be your entertainment. It should be your medicine. Let your medicine be your food, and let your food be your medicine.
I appreciate.
And so, air, fresh air. People, they close the room up. They got heated. In the summertime, they got air-conditioned central air. Open the window and let some of that ozone in there, bleach out and kill the germ. I had an ozone generator one time that got rid of a lot of fungus and got rid of other biological agents and stuff like that. But plants are good to have in your house. They produce a cleansing agent in the air. They will help cleanse bacteria, get rid of bacteria, mold, and fungus, and maybe even some bacteria and viruses, if you keep a lot of nice green plants in there. It smells good. You ever walk into a conservatory? One of my favorite places are conservatories because it's filled with plants. It's just like being transmitted to the jungle. And I can breathe that air all day long, and it just relaxes me, So those are the things that you need to do to get yourself ready.
Optimize.
And stay ready and be prepared physically, mentally, and spiritually for any assault. And if you protect yourself well enough, maybe you can avoid. And I do use a shield across my face. I don't have one. Well, yes, I do. I use a shield because I'll tell you why. Here, I use the shield. Sometimes when I don't have my eyeglasses on, I got the shield on my face. They can spit, they can shower me, they can be coughing, and I can walk through a cloud of coughing, and it will just pass around my face as I'm walking through a crowd, through the store, or what have you. It kind of bounces off that shield. And so it protects, as Dr. Payne brought out, it protects your eyes from being a source of entry for somebody who just sneezed a cough. They took their mask down to sneeze because they felt like they were suffocating. So they won't feel like they're not getting enough air. They go, and then you walk through it. But if you walk through it like this, they were like 6 feet in front of you, and you walk through it like this. That's better than walking through it and sucking it up. All right, I think that's about enough for today.
I truly appreciate it, both Dr. Johnson and Dr. Payne. I truly appreciate what you do, what both of you done, bringing your expertise to help us. I truly appreciate it. And I think I could speak to the audience, for the audience as well, that on behalf of all of us, we want to say thanks to both of you.
You're welcome.
You're welcome.
So without
by God's grace alone.
Yes, we appreciate it. So without any further ado, please, I'm asking you now to just bow your head with us while we just ask God to help us. Heavenly Father and our good God, Father, we want to thank you for Jesus Christ. And then secondly, oh God, we want to thank you for how you have used both of your men servants to be a blessing for us. These are scholars among scholars, and yet they come to this show and they share with us their knowledge free of cost. Oh God, I pray that you will in turn bless them. You know where they seek blessings from you. So just like how they have shared their knowledge with us freely, I pray, oh God, that you will bless them tenfold. And Lord, the knowledge that we have gathered from them, I pray, oh God, that we'll apply it to our lives so we can stay safe in this COVID-19. And then, Father, even when we try our best to stay safe, this virus, there's so much unknown about this virus that we don't know some of the things that we think we're doing right, we may be doing them wrong. So, God, I pray that you will help us. And where we fail to do our best, I pray, oh God, that you will substitute for our ignorance. But just help us. I pray for all of the doctors all over the world, the scientists, and particularly, oh God, these various scientists that are in the lab working on this vaccine. Oh Father, I pray that you will help them to come up with the best vaccine possible. In particular, in these United States, Because based on what Dr. Payne have shared us, from all the countries in the world, we have hit worst with this virus. And I think it is part of our ignorance, because we refuse to adhere to the wisdom of the scientists. But oh God, I pray that you will forgive us. Don't treat us as we deserve. I pray for your grace and your mercy. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
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 I don't want to give people misinterpretation that I wear that shield by itself. I wear a mask up under there, K95 up under there over my face, and I usually have glasses, but I'll have the shield on top of the mask, so that a lot of people breathe in through the top of the mask. But if you have the shield on there, that kind of helps, so that you're not. Then I have gloves, and also sometimes I go in and out of people's houses. I have the footwear, so it's not just that the shield. So here's like a picture of me with the mask and the shield and everything together. So this is, and a coat. The coat is disposable. I can take it off, take it on, and I have shoe coverings as I go in and out of their houses for house call. Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
All right. Thank you very much for those illustrations, Dr. Johnson. We appreciate